KCRA3 News on My 58. We begin with breaking news.
A police officer shot in the yard of a Sacramento home. A standoff still underway tonight. Police radio traffic describing a dangerous scene when shots first broke out around 6 o'clock tonight.
Officer down, hold three. Copy, officer down. Copy, officer down, starting fire. High-powered rifle, multiple reloads. He's from the front, towards the north, from the south. He's still firing.
You can hear the number of gunshots there in that audio. Hundreds of officers from several different agencies swarmed the area, including SWAT teams, and Live Copter 3 was up flying over the area earlier. We saw snipers on the roofs of nearby homes. They also saw an armored truck. It's called a Bearcat that had been brought into a backyard and was moving closer to the home where the shooter was.
At that time, they believed that the officer was shot with a rifle, and the officer went down in the yard of a residence.
Well, let's take a closer look now at where this is happening still. The standoff is happening in North Sacramento at Edgewater Road and Redwood Avenue. That's not far from El Camino Avenue. At this point, police have not made any arrests, and Sacramento police say there is at least one shooter.
It's a very scary, very dangerous situation for officers still on scene. We have live team coverage. KCRA3's Michelle Dapper is live at UC Davis Medical Center, where the officer who was shot is being treated. KCRA3's Marley Martinez is getting reaction from neighbors who've been watching this all unfold. We
begin, though, with KCRA3's Walter McCalla. He's also at the scene with what's happening right now. Walter?
Brian, good evening. I'm standing on the corner of El Camino Avenue and Forest Street. It's a staging center about 3 blocks north of where this is all going down. Now, I just got out of a press conference about 45 minutes ago with the Sacramento Police Department, and they laid out a timeline of exactly what unfolded this afternoon. They tell us that this morning, shortly before noon, Sacramento police got a phone call about a disturbance between a man and a woman. At 3:30, they met the woman at a separate location, and they escorted her back to the scene, which is a home where they were providing her assistance in gathering and removing some of her personal belongings. Now, as the woman was gathering her things, a man arrived with a rifle, and shots were fired at about 6:10. An officer was hit at that time. An armored vehicle was able to arrive at the scene at 6:54, and then it was able to extract that officer at 6:59.
Our officers took safe positions, and at that time they believed that the officer was shot with a rifle, and the officer went down in the yard of a residence, and due to the suspect being armed with a rifle and actively shooting more than the original shooting, our officers maintained cover and in safe positions until we were able to get an armored vehicle in the area. And shortly before 6 p.m., our officers were able to bring an armored vehicle to the location and execute a rescue of the officer who had been shot.
Now, it is still a very active scene. Police are encouraging residents to stay in their homes. The immediate area has been evacuated for safety precautions, but right now that suspect is still holed up in that home with several law enforcement agencies surrounding that area. Again, I'm about 3 blocks from that scene, 3 blocks to the north. That is what we're seeing right here from this location. We're live in Del Paso Heights. We'll send it back to you.
Walter, you mentioned how active the scene still is. Now, we've got some reports from police there that there had been shots fired as recently as 1 hour ago, right around 9 o'clock. Did you hear that, and have you heard any gunfire since then?
I have to tell you that I just heard gunshots right before you came to me, about maybe, I want to say 30 seconds. As I was getting ready and listening to you and Kelly speaking, I heard a shot.
Wow. This is gunfire now that's been going on for the better part of more than 3 hours at least.
Yeah, Walter, we know also dozens of neighbors came out of their homes as the shooting unfolded. We also have KCRA3's Marley Martinez, who spoke with a lot of folks who were outside of their homes. I'm sure they are very scared. We saw some people taking photos and just not knowing exactly what to do. Let's go to her live now. Marley, what are they telling you tonight?
Absolutely. Well, this active standoff is smack dab in the middle of a very busy neighborhood. And there were hundreds of officers, as you were reporting earlier, that have been out here tonight who are still out here. When this scene just started unfolding, it seems there were just as many people out here as well. Now, the house that law enforcement has surrounded, it's just around the corner to the left. This is the closest and safest location we can get to the active standoff. And that's the key here, the safest location. We have been on the scene for just about 4 hours. And when we rolled up earlier, that was before all of the police tape was up. And in fact, a sheriff's deputy came up to us and said, you guys, you got to drive down the road. You are in the line of fire of a high-powered rifle. So, of course, we listened to that officer's directions and continued down the street to the parking lot where Walter is standing now. It's a very active scene, as we were saying earlier, dozens of neighbors out here holding their cell phones, watching to see if they were safe as a standoff is going on. And we talked to a couple of those residents tonight.
A police officer and the cops still back there, and every time they go to retrieve them, that they're shooting at, they're shooting right now.
It is very concerning. My wife and my daughter's at the house, so I mean, this is not like a laughing matter, or anything, at all funny about it. I mean, it's right here. I have some neighbors, who and other families here that I know that I'm real close with. So, and this is all right here. So to have that exchange of gunfire, of course, is alarming.
When we spoke with those two gentlemen, it was just across the street from the house. And since then, officers have pushed everyone back to where we're standing now, just around the corner from the house, to make sure that everyone is safe. Because as you know, this standoff is still ongoing. We have seen so many other law enforcement jurisdictions come out here to help out. In fact, about an hour ago, maybe an hour and a half ago, Folsom's Mobile Command Center came through this road right here to help out. So many others out here as well. Rancho Cordova, we've seen armored tanks come out here. We have seen SWAT units. It's been very active. Neighbors out here just hoping for a quick resolution with no more injuries. Back to you guys in the studio.
Marley, have they given you any indication of when this might be safe for those folks to go back?
Well, that is the main question that a lot of people are asking, because there are some residents standing here on the corner wondering when can they get to their house. So far, no updates. It just seems that right now their priority is making sure that nobody gets too close, that they're not even possibly in the line of fire at all. So everyone here is just waiting to see when can they get back to their house. When we were standing in front of the house about 2 hours ago, they were still surrounding the house. They were still standing there, officers blocking themselves with all of the cars that were parked in the driveway and along the street. Since then, we haven't heard any indication of what's going on inside of that house. And now everyone out here in the neighborhood waiting to hear what's happening as well.
Well, they need to keep a safe distance for sure, Marley, and that's what the police are doing right now, because we just heard from Walter. He heard some shots just as recently as a few minutes ago. So, all right, thank you, Marley. There are dozens of law enforcement officers at UC Davis Medical Center right now. That's where the officer who was shot was taken for treatment.
KCRA3's Michelle Dapper has been there all evening. She joins us live from the scene. Michelle, we saw a lot of officers going to that hospital tonight.
You're exactly right. Of course, it's a very fluid situation here at UC Davis Medical Center. We know that female officer that was shot is being treated here. As you look behind me here, there's a crowd of officers. Of course, these officers gathered here from agencies across the region. They've been embracing, hugging, and some even crying, all showing support for their brothers and sisters in blue. Of course, the patrol cars and motorcycles, they haven't stopped arriving as well. I've been here since 7, and they have just kept coming and coming. Officers in uniform as well as off-duty officers all gathered here. The chaplain was also seen going inside the hospital, as well as the crime scene investigation officers making their way again inside UC Davis Medical Center. Now, I did just see a tow truck come. The tow truck took away the damaged police car that came here earlier tonight. But of course, the mood here, very quiet, very somber. And of course, they're just here to show the support for the officer that was shot tonight. So we'll keep you updated, of course, as we get more information. Hopefully they'll host a press conference for us. But again, that's all we know to this point, and we'll keep you updated as it all unfolds. In Sacramento, Michelle Dapper, KCRA3 News.
Yeah, Michelle, every viewer who's watching us tonight either probably has a relative or knows somebody who's in that law enforcement community, and it's just a really close family, all these brothers and sisters. Okay, thanks, Michelle.
KCRA3 3 has some audio recordings from Sacramento police as the gunfire erupted, and in it you can hear the moments that officers tried to find the suspect and rescue that fallen officer.
And we're going to play that for you now, along with some exclusive video from Live Copter 3 as it flew overhead when police moved in. Now, we want to warn you, some of this audio may be shocking to hear.
Officer down, officer down. Hold please. Copy, officer down. Copy, officer down. Starting fire. Do we still have a suspect outstanding? Yeah, he's still shooting. Changing clips, changing clips, changing clips. Let's clear the air. We got one down in the rear shed. High-powered rifle, multiple reloads. Has the officer been evacuated? We can't get none. She's pinned down. He's firing out the front and the rear. Don't go in the front or immediately rear the house. We need shields, and we're going to need more than that. Might as well get that bear cat rolling. She's down. She's in the backyard. Everybody else is up front.
Wow, that's chilling to hear that.
It really is. Just to recap again, this breaking news we've been reporting all night: a Sacramento police officer was shot in the middle of that gunfire, and officers tell us she is in serious condition at UC Davis Medical Center.
So right now, still a very active scene. We spoke with Walter McCall a few minutes ago. The suspect is still barricaded inside the home. You heard Walter say he heard some gunshots as recently as a few minutes ago. He has been shooting at officers who've had that home surrounded now for several hours. They have been using those SWAT vehicles. You heard them mention in the audio, they're the Bearcat. They have several of those type of vehicles there at the scene. This North Sacramento neighborhood near the intersection of Redwood Avenue and Edgewater Road. This is obviously video from earlier today from Live Copter 3, and people who live in that area have been told to stay away for their own safety right now. You can continue to follow this right now. We have all of the latest information for you on the KCRA3 mobile app. Of course, we will continue to check in with our reporters there at the scene throughout this hour-long newscast as well.
Yeah, we'll get a live update at 10:30. We'll have more news on the KCRA3 News at 11, plus our app, our Facebook pages, everywhere. We're getting this updated for you and making calls as we speak. Just make sure you enable those push alerts on your phones for the latest developments. Still ahead here at 10, drinking dirty water. Rancho Murrieta residents worried about what's coming out of the tap. The town's message addressing their concerns.
Finding a temporary home where Paradise residents who lost their homes in the campfire are finding refuge.
Music empire closing its doors. The legacy Dimple Records leaves behind. What it contributed to the Sacramento music scene.
And we've been watching this comfortable Delta breeze throughout the night. Much cooler than it was last night. In just a couple of minutes, I'll show you just how comfortable tomorrow is going to be.
Now on My 58.
Davis officer targeted. Natalie Corona shot several times. Bystanders caught in a hail of bullets.
Reloaded and then started shooting in another direction.
What we're learning about the shooter.
The officer's father in mourning.
We're hurt. Yeah, we're going to grieve for a while.
Childhood friends remember Natalie's kindness.
Biggest heart of all the people I've ever known.
Her colleagues remember her excitement and dedication to the job.
If you gave me 70 Natalie Coronas on day one of Academy, I'd give you 70 solid officers 6 months later.
Tonight, the memorial's growing across Davis in her memory.
A chilling video.
It was very tough, but very rewarding at the same time.
Officer Corona describes in her own words what it was like to graduate from the police academy.
Where the news comes first. KCRA 3 News at 10 on My 58.
Officer ambushed. That's how Davis's police chief is describing the attack that killed Officer Natalie Corona.
22 years old, she had just finished her training with the department a few weeks ago when she was gunned down last night at a scene of a car accident in downtown Davis. And tonight, police say that attack could have been so much worse.
Several bullets hit a fire truck. Other bullets went across the street. At least one house was struck. We have a report that a bus that was going by was also struck with a bullet.
And we have live KCRA 3 team coverage tonight.
Walter McCall has been talking to people in Davis about what happened in their normally quiet college town.
But we begin with KCRA 3's Emily Maha with some new information we've just learned tonight about how this situation could have been different. Emily?
Brian, Kelly, I want to show you something first. First responders put up this flag in honor of their fellow officer. This is the intersection where Officer Natalie Corona was shot and killed. Tonight, the Davis police chief telling us the gunman rode a bicycle up to this area before pulling a semi-automatic pistol, shooting and killing the officer.
He came from the side. Based on how dark it was, we're speculating that she never even saw him.
Officer Natalie Corona was helping the drivers involved in a 3-car crash when the chief says she was ambushed.
The suspect basically just opened up fire, shot her once, and she went down to the ground, and he then ended up shooting her multiple times.
Davis Police Chief Darren Pytel says the killer emptied an entire magazine, then reloaded and started shooting at other first responders, including a firefighter.
He ran, and while he was running, was shot at. One round hit his boot, didn't penetrate, didn't hurt him.
Investigators say the gunman took off running back to a house where he lived with his roommate.
It was there that he met with a roommate, and really didn't show any signs that he had just been involved in this incident. Spoke to the roommate for a period of time and actually stayed outside and was watching what was going on.
A witness pointed out a backpack that had been left not far from the scene, telling officers it was dropped by the suspect. Investigators used the contents inside to identify the man and track him down. Once officers surrounded the house on the corner of E and 5th Streets, the chief says the man came outside wearing a bulletproof vest.
He shouted some stuff, went back in, and ended up coming out again wearing a vest and had a firearm.
The chief says after coming out a second time, the suspect went back into the house, pushed a couch in front of the door, and shot himself in the head.
We were able to eventually make entry into the residence using a robot. We didn't want to send any personnel inside. The robot has a camera on it, and eventually we came across the subject, and he was deceased.
Now, the chief is not releasing the name or age of the gunman at this point, but the chief did say the man has filed police reports with the department in the past, saying none of those reports were out of the ordinary, and saying the gunman reported that he had been the victim of a crime in the past. Reporting live in Davis, Emily Maha, KCRA 3 News.
Yeah, just stunning details tonight, Emily. Thank you.
Let's get to KCRA 3's Walter McCalla. He's live outside the Davis Police Department, where a memorial for Officer Corona continues to grow there as well.
That's right, Kelly. Good evening to you. There's been a steady stream of well-wishers here throughout the night outside the Davis Police Department. You can see a growing memorial, as you said. It's filled with flowers, balloons, and handwritten notes by people who are heartbroken. Many who came by to pay their respects didn't even know her.
I wanted to be a police officer like Natalie.
8-year-old Agia Verdi wanted to be just like her. When news of the fallen officer broke, the little girl from Davis told her mom she wanted to write Officer Corona a get well card.
I would write that if she had enough time to get better, she would go to the hospital.
I said, we'll get some flowers after work and we'll come by. And then when I went to work, I checked and I had heard that they had passed.
Throughout the day and night, a memorial outside the front entrance of the police department continues to grow.
It's great to see that people do recognize, they are trying to make a difference, and they're out to protect and serve. So it's great to see the show of support.
Flowers, balloons, and candles crowd the sidewalk, while messages of love and support fill a banner posted on the wall. People who didn't know her feeling compelled to pay their respects.
She gave up her life supporting us and protecting us, and we want to show her that she's supported and her family.
10 blocks away, where Officer Corona was gunned down, another memorial is attracting people who knew her. Mark Wolgemuth works for the towing company the Davis Police Department uses for disabled vehicles involved in accidents. He couldn't contain his emotions.
I sat in my chair and I prayed for her. So I just sorry. I couldn't say anything else. I was numb. I had a hard time going to sleep thinking about it.
Mark, like many others who knew Officer Corona, in disbelief over the tragic chain of events that took her life. And a public vigil is being planned in honor of Officer Corona for tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. It will be held at Central Park in downtown Davis. In Davis, Walter McCalla, KCRA 3 News.
Just a beautiful show of support for Miss Corona and her family. All right, thanks, Walter. There's also a special, unexpected moment today from a Davis resident just wanting to pay his respects to Officer Corona.
Now, earlier this evening, a man stood outside the Davis police station, played Amazing Grace on the bagpipes before the flag as it flew at half-staff. Really special moment, and this was also special. Last night there was another Davis resident who honored Officer Corona by standing outside UC Davis Medical Center in Sacramento where she was being treated. He held the American flag with a thin blue line. He held it for hours. And the Davis police chief tells us there is an honor guard that will stand watch over Officer Corona's body until she's buried.
New details are coming out tonight about the woman behind the badge and Officer Corona's calling to serve. The 22-year-old grew up in Colusa County, where she dreamed of being a police cadet. Her childhood friends describe her as warm and selfless. Her colleagues and corporals at the Sacramento Police Academy describe her admirable grit and tenacity.
The biggest heart of all the people I've ever known. There was not a mean bone in her body.
Almost our entire academy class was at the hospital last night. We waited there until she was transported. I'm proud of her and I'm grateful that I met her and I admire her. I want to be as strong as her.
If you gave me 70 Natalie Coronas on day one of academy, I'd give you 70 solid officers 6 months later.
He says that so well. The Sacramento Police Academy now creating the Natalie Corona Award that will be given to a person in each class capable of showing just a glimpse of Natalie's integrity. We have a video clip of Officer Corona in her own words talking about how much it meant to her to graduate from the police academy.
It was very tough, but very rewarding at the same time. I wouldn't be the person I am today if it weren't for the academy staff pushing me the way they did. I'm definitely a stronger person now, mentally and physically, so I'm very thankful for them.
Officer Corona graduated last summer. She had just finished training with the Davis Police Department around Christmas. She was only on patrol for a few weeks.
Officer Corona joined the force to follow in the footsteps of her father.
Yeah, he's a retired Colusa County Sheriff's detective and county supervisor. Merced Corona spoke with KCRA 3's Kevin Oliver today about the heartache his family is feeling right now.
I think all our hearts are broken. She was a special person. She was a special daughter. And just everybody that she met loved her.
Family, friends, fellow officers and deputies, including the chief of Davis Police, stepped into the Corona family home in Arbuckle to pay their respects to Natalie Corona's sisters and parents.
They've been coming and going since early in the morning, so they want to be with the family, with me and the girls, and we appreciate them. It's a small community, and with a small community, everybody knows everybody.
She came from a family full of police officers, at least a dozen by one relative's count.
In a way, I mean, she wanted to follow in my footsteps. Ever since she was a little girl, she always was very interested in law enforcement. She wanted to go on ride-alongs with me almost daily, but I didn't take her every day. And I just knew in my heart that that's the career path that she was going to take.
It was her father who pinned her badge on for the first time.
She was absolutely just committed to the job. She just loved it. She came home, she was excited. Every day that she came home, she was full of stories and just wanted us to know what she had done that day, and we were just proud of her. She was just enjoying serving.
But as a father who knew what she was getting into, he feared for her safety.
I really do think she understood that there was a possibility that she can get hurt, and she was willing to take that chance, you know, because that's the profession that she wanted to get into. That was what she loved to do.
She loved being a Davis police officer so much that when community service officer or CSO funding was cut, she decided to stay on.
She came home one day and she said, Dad, they said there's no more money for the CSO position that I'm in. She says, what should I do? And I said, well, you can either go to work, get another, go find another job. She said, but I like it there, you know, I want to stay there. And I said, well, you know, that's up to you. He says, but there's no pay, and I'll just have to volunteer my time. And then I said, well, if you're up for that, it's up to you. Wow. You know, and she did that. She just decided that she was going to do it even if it was for free. That's the kind of person that Natalie was. She cared about everybody, sometimes to her own detriment. She cared about other people. We're hurting. Yeah, we're going to grieve for a while. We're very faithful people, and we know that God had a plan for her.
In Arbuckle, Kevin Oliver, KCRA 3 News.
Our thoughts certainly with their family tonight. Sadly, Officer Corona's death is part of a disturbing trend in the United States. Last year alone, 47 law enforcement officers were shot and killed in this country while on duty, and of those, 4 served and protected here in California. 2 of those law enforcement officers were in Northern California when they were killed, including Sacramento Sheriff's Deputy Mark Stasiuk and Newman Police Officer Ronil Singh. The other 2 officers killed were in Southern California. Those numbers do not include, by the way, law enforcement who died in vehicle accidents while on duty, including CHP officer Kirk Grice, who was struck and killed along I-80 on August 10th. We're going to continue to follow this investigation both on air and online with the KCRA 3 mobile app, so be sure to enable your push alerts to have breaking news sent right to your phone.
Next on the KCRA 3 News at 10, we have a KCRA 3 exclusive. A 14-year-old attacked by dogs in Marysville, telling his story, what he had to say to his rescuer as they were reunited over the phone.
Stockton swim coach arrested. Police say he sexually abused a child. Why officials are asking for your help.
And leaving NBC for good. Megyn Kelly getting a big payout. What we're learning about the agreement she's reached with the network.
Now on My 58.
Round 2 of the first Democratic debate.
America does not want to witness a food fight. They want to know how we're going to put food on their table.
Fiery exchanges between 10 candidates.
She didn't just break through, she crushed it.
And analysis from our KCRA 3 experts on the race for the White House.
Fallen but never forgotten.
We honor her. We remember her.
From the skies to the ground, the tributes to Sacramento police officer Tara O'Sullivan.
And studying styrofoam, Elk Grove weighs the impact on businesses of banning it against the benefits for the environment.
My news, my weather, my investigations. KCRA 3 News at 10 on My 58.
We begin with night 2 of the first Democratic debates. 10 candidates on stage, including some big names like Vice President Joe Biden, Senator Bernie Sanders, and Senators Kamala Harris. There was a noticeable difference in energy and tone between night 1 and 2.
And we're going to show you the reaction from a Sacramento watch party and also bring you some analysis from our team of KCRA 3 political experts. But we begin with NBC's Jay Gray. He's live in Miami with the highlights. And Jay, a little more excitement tonight.
Hey, there really was. Brian Kelly, good to talk again. You know, after last night's scrum between the first 10 candidates, we did expect more fire on the stage today. The second 10 did not disappoint at all, coming out swinging, taking swipes at President Trump and the fellow candidates on the stage.
The first shots in round 2.
Donald Trump thinks Wall Street built America. Ordinary middle-class Americans build America.
Were clearly aimed.
Where was that question when the Republicans and Donald Trump passed a tax bill that benefits the top 1%?
At the man currently in the White House.
That Trump is a phony, that Trump is a pathological liar.
And for the lesser-known candidates, the front runners were also a target.
I was 6 years old when a presidential candidate came to the California Democratic Convention and said, it's time to pass the torch to a new generation of Americans. That candidate was then Senator Joe Biden.
I'm still holding on to that torch.
The group at times ignoring the rules. The discourse spinning into a free-for-all.
Hey guys, you know what? America does not want to witness a food fight. They want to know how we're going to put food on their table.
Much of the early talk focused on health care and immigration, both issues at the center of a key moment in the debate.
Raise your hand if your government plan would provide coverage for undocumented immigrants.
President Trump quickly responding on Twitter, saying in part, how about taking care of American citizens first? That's the end of that race. But the back and forth through the 2 hours would suggest the race is far from over.
To hear you talk about the reputations of two United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race.
It's a mischaracterization of my position across the board.
With the high-profile candidates constantly in the crossfire.
Sometimes you do have to beat him, but the deal that he talked about with Mitch McConnell was a complete victory for the Tea Party.
The first debates here, framing what looks to be a long and at times fiery campaign season.
The candidates will have 60 seconds.
Yeah, and if you didn't get enough over the last 2 days, don't worry. The candidates will gather again at the end of July for a second debate. Ryan, Kelly.
Jay, thanks for staying up with us tonight. Appreciate it.
And right now, California Senator Kamala Harris is trending on Google. A lot of voters who watch tonight's debate closely.
KCRA3's Walter McCalla was at a watch party at Cupero's Craft House in Sacramento, where more than 100 people had their eyes glued on the screen.
The overwhelming consensus?
I think Kamala Harris was a surprise contender tonight.
Kamala Harris, yeah, she looks strong. Tonight, I say Kamala Harris has been doing very well.
The California senator, in their eyes, stealing the show.
She is a fighter for the people, and she's shown that today, that she will fight for everybody, not just the privileged few.
She's been talking about talking about us, talking about what America should stand for and how we go about standing for it. And she's been doing it forcefully, but not too forcefully. And I think she's been making some really good points about social justice, about economic issues, about healthcare.
Going into the debate, it was the frontrunners who had everything to lose. And according to some, one did just that.
Joe Biden, it's been a little bit disappointing, to be honest. I was expecting him to come out more motivated. I mean, he is polling #1, and to see him, kind of not be able to respond to the questions, not connect with the public, or address the issues that are affecting people, it's a little bit disappointing.
Bernie Sanders is on point with every topic of conversation. He understands every question asked to him, and he does have an answer for everything. The only thing that I saw him stumble on tonight was taxes.
But in the end, the candidate who rose to the top, the home state senator.
I'm really appreciating Kamala Harris right now, but I think she was built for the debate stage.
In Sacramento, Walter McCalla, KCRA3 News.
And earlier tonight, we aired part 2 of our special Commitment 2020, the California Effect.
Dalston Dart joins us now with some of the big takeaways from our Democratic and Republican analysts and our panel of voters.
Yeah, Kelly, Brian, well, much more on that lively debate stage tonight. Our analyst speaking to us about who came out on top in tonight's group of 10.
This was a really great night for Senator Kamala Harris. It was also a good night for Kristen Gillibrand. So I think it was a great night for women. It was exciting to see, and I think there'll be a woman on the ticket in the 2020 election.
But I think Kamala actually, I think the Google trends are going to be more or less favorable toward her as far as the next few days. And we'll see how that will transcend as it relates to raising funds and developing organizations, see how that plays itself out.
Well, out of the 20 candidates from both debates, I think Kamala Harris definitely stood out. Her interaction with Joe Biden was exceptional, not just in that she was able to directly confront Joe Biden, but she was able to do it in a way that tapped into emotion, not just stats and debates.
Also joining us tonight, 6 voters with different backgrounds and political views, and they watched the debate start to finish with Brian. And unlike last night's debate tonight, they saw some clear winners and candidates who they say stood out from the crowd.
Okay, I won't be voting for her, but I was impressed with the motivational speaker, Ms. Williams.
Okay. Cynthia?
Kamala Harris.
Okay. Barry?
I'm not Democrat or Republican, but I will say Ms. Harris.
Okay. Clay?
Well, actually, none of them said anything that I haven't heard before, but if I had to choose one, I'd probably pick Kamala Harris because she was really on fire tonight. She was aggressive, and she's a street fighter, kind of like Trump.
Okay, there you go. All right.
Harry.
All right.
Full name, right?
Yeah.
Kamala Pete Castro.
That's good. That's good. Okay. Basim?
Kamala Harris for the stories and for the energy, and then Bernie for speaking directly to the working class.
And for more on the first Democratic debate, including an in-depth debrief on that and a fact check on many of the claims that were made over these past 2 nights, go check out our KCRA3 app. It's free. Kelly?
Thank you, Gulson. Let's switch gears now to a dramatic and sad display today. Grief, support, and honor for fallen Sacramento police officer Tara O'Sullivan. Livecopter 3 captured these aerials of people from all over California and across the country gathering around her casket, lining the streets, waving flags, standing in silence on overpasses, even pulling over on the freeway to remember the public servant who was ambushed and killed.
And the bagpipes welcomed Officer O'Sullivan's casket to Bayside Adventure Church in Roseville today. Her godfather described her as ambitious, passionate, and a standout on the police force. And Sacramento Police Chief Daniel Hahn remembered her rise in the department after graduating from Sacramento State.
None of the glowing adoration you hear of her today is embellished. You talk to 20 people who knew her, really get them to describe her without the weight of what happened on June 19th. And you'll hear 20 people tell you of a young woman of unique character.
In the short time she served our community as an officer, she changed the trajectory of countless lives.
And O'Sullivan was 26 years old when she was killed.
As a young girl growing up in the Bay Area, criminal justice was always her goal. KCRA3's Vicki Gonzalez shows us why complete strangers were compelled to come pay their respects.
Bayside Adventure Church. Overflowing with strangers across the state and country. Many who live the daily risks that claimed Sacramento police officer Tara O'Sullivan's life, while others grateful for the 26-year-old sacrifice.
Well, I want to pay tribute to Tara O'Sullivan. I want to spend my time here thinking of her and, the tragic loss of her young life.
Wanting future generations to understand the meaning of protect and serve.
I grew up with such a negative version of officers and from the Bay Area, and as I grown and mature, I just have a different outlook on officers. She was just trying to help a woman get out of an abusive situation, and she put her life in the front line.
From pride to messages of support, thousands showed up, overflowing outside the church and lining underneath a patriotic threshold.
The community's pretty loud when they mess up, and I think it's important that we're even louder when they suffer a loss like they did.
Strangers showing up.
Freeze it!
Some embarking in the same footsteps.
Encouraging the community, let's start from the very beginning, today being the beginning of how we grieve correctly and how we can support our officers.
Wrapping their arms around another end of watch. In Roseville, Vicki Gonzalez, KCRA 3 News.
We can also show you from the air the huge community response for Officer O'Sullivan's death.
KCRA3's Edie Lambert put together some of the most touching moments from O'Sullivan's final journey that were captured by Livecopter 3.
The procession started on Elk Grove Boulevard. A white hearse carried Officer Tara O'Sullivan's casket from the Elk Grove Funeral Home to her memorial service in Roseville. This was just after 8 this morning. Some people lining the streets told our reporters they would be late to work, but felt it was more important to show their support for O'Sullivan's family and law enforcement. And this was the first overpass the procession traveled under, the first of so many where people stood with firefighters to pay respects. Along the way, officers never left the side of their fallen sister. And this is what her family saw as they arrived at Bayside Adventure Church in Roseville. A tremendous show of support, with hundreds of officers from across the nation lined up. Each of them saluted her and her family as the hearse arrived, and 8 officers carried her casket into the church. After the service ended, it was clear community support had only grown. Even more people were lining the streets with thin blue line flags and messages. Messages appreciated by every member of a motorcade that stretched for miles. Her return journey saw crowded overpasses and drivers pulling over on both sides of the interstate, getting out of their cars to pay respects. This was the off-ramp where the final procession moved onto Marysville Boulevard. Before returning to Elk Grove, it passed a waiting crowd at Officer Sullivan's police station, the William J. Kinney Police Facility, where she had been so proud to work.
And even smaller tributes like this sidewalk mural made with chalk are capturing who Officer O'Sullivan was. An artist created this piece of work in Elk Grove, along Elk Grove Boulevard, to capture the happiness the officer was known for.
I very much felt like this picture is a picture of her alive and at one of her happiest moments where she's got her cap on. I really love that picture. Her eyes shine, her big smile, she just... So just doing it's personal and it's emotional.
Businesses across Northern California also pitching in to honor O'Sullivan's memory. Jack's Urban Eats in Midtown Sacramento was packed today. All of their locations donated 25% of sales today to Officer O'Sullivan's Memorial Fund.
Nice gesture there for sure. All right, so we continue to cover Officer O'Sullivan's memory on our KCRA3 app, and we have highlights from today's memorial service, as well as the special story of a North Sacramento family who hand-painted blue hearts to line the procession route.
Let's turn now to KCRA3 weather. More relief from the heat tonight. We saw cooler temperatures again today. Here's a live look from our Rayleigh Field sky camera. Nice clear night out there and certainly cooler again, Tamara.
Well, we actually had some clouds in place, Kelly, and that's really what made those beautiful colors we saw on the horizon for the sunset tonight. You can see all this cloud cover kind of moving its way up and down much of the valley floor and drifting into the Sierra. So we are going to see a cloudy start to your morning for Friday. Keep in mind those clouds will keep temperatures hovering in the upper 50s for the most part. By 8 o'clock in the morning, we'll jump into the low 60s. By 10 a.m. for your Friday, we're in the upper 60s, and those clouds will start to thin out by lunchtime with temperatures getting into the upper 70s. We have another beautiful forecast setting up for your Friday. I'll show you what that weekend is looking like coming up in a bit. Back to you.
Okay, thank you, Tamara. Still ahead at 10, sports betting on the ballot, how California voters could have a final say in 2020.
Takeout debate, how Elk Grove is studying the impact of banning styrofoam containers.
And later, the G20 summit begins. Global leaders getting together, talking about trade and climate change, the controversy before it even began.
Now on My 58.
Let's go Paradise! Starting a new chapter.
I feel like I've really become emotionally stronger.
It's graduation night in Paradise. Coming up, we'll share the stories of the students who survived the campfire.
Terrifying home invasion. A man takes a child hostage in Modesto. How SWAT teams got the child out safely.
Windows smashed at Sacramento bars.
A man caught red-handed throwing one of these through 1, 2, 3, 4 Midtown bar and restaurants in Sacramento's Lavender District.
The damage tonight and how the suspect was captured.
My news, my weather, my investigations. KCRA 3 News at 10 on My 58.
Graduating among the ashes. The state's most deadly and destructive wildfire destroyed their town. Now the seniors at Paradise High School are looking toward the future.
To say we got to do that with everything going on, that's what I'm most proud of, because we did it together as a family.
And they should be proud. 220 high school seniors received their diplomas tonight.
They've been through a lot. KCRA 3's Emily Maha is live in Paradise now with more on their stories. Emily?
Edie, Brian, these are more than high school graduates. This is the class of 2019, the class that survived the campfire. And for many of them, this school is their second home, and these friends are their family who survived it with them.
I'm extremely excited, more excited than nervous.
That nervous excitement fills the air as the class of 2019 fills the Paradise High School football field.
I'm gonna actually be graduating. I'm so excited. Like, I've been waiting for this for 4 years now.
Every test, every homework assignment has led up to this moment. But for the class of 2019,
I thought I would never get here tonight, to be honest.
Tonight is a moment some thought they'd never get to see.
It means absolutely everything to me, because when it happened, like the fire, I was like, so nervous that wasn't going to happen. I was even nervous that Paradise wasn't going to exist.
When the Camp Fire tore through Paradise, it destroyed nearly 14,000 homes. Of Paradise High School's 980 students, about 900 lost theirs.
I lost my home and everything. I wasn't able to grab anything out of my house.
While the high school wasn't damaged, classes were forced to be held in Chico. But on graduation night, the seniors returned to their high school with friends who have become family.
To know that Paradise still exists and we're still a family and we're still strong and we're graduating on our home field, it just means the world to me, and it's undescribable.
It's important to me that we go out as one big family and have one last big event.
Everybody got together and we all made memories that we'll never forget.
Their graduation caps tell their stories.
There is a bunch of pine trees because, Paradise pine trees.
Stories of who they are and who they've become.
I want to tear up a little bit just because everyone is happy, and I'm just happy tears and just so amazing.
While it's tough to leave,
I don't want to leave. There's so much here.
The class of 2019, the class that survived the campfire, is ready to face the world.
My class and the whole school came out stronger than ever.
Yeah, Paradise strong.
Now you are taking a look at those 220 brand new Paradise High School graduates. They are celebrating out there on the football field with their family. We just got to watch one of the very coolest things that we have seen tonight. All of those graduates got to their feet, they did their school cheer, and in that moment, they moved their tassels right over and became graduates of this high school. A really special moment to get to see for these students who have gone through so much. Now, we know about 80% of these graduates have plans to attend high school, and they tell me while they're looking forward to the next steps, they will never, ever forget the experiences they've had right here. Live in Butte County, Emily Maha, KCRA 3 News.
We wish them all the best as they head off to college. Emily, thank you so much.